Welcome to another CEO Wisdom podcast. We have Etienne de Bruin with us today. Etienne is the CEO and founder of Seven CTOs. He does a whole bunch of things as well. He's a tech advisor. He's a 5X founder. He's a mentor to tech leaders. He's an author as well. If you go check out his book, CTO Sentinel, I believe it's called. And yeah, we're gonna have a fun convo today. He's live from South Africa, I believe, and I am in Oaxaca, Mexico. So, Etienne, welcome to the pod. Tell us a bit more about yourself
Thank
and what
you.
you're up to.
Thank you. I am in Salt Lake City, United States. Just moved here a few weeks ago, and my book is called CTO Excellence. And I have a new book coming out in 2 or 3 weeks, which I co authored with Kathy Keating and Scott Graves, called Liquid.
What is that one going to be about?
Really addresses the challenge that CTOs and CEOs face when the complexity of their organizations and their tech companies increase. And so we take a systems thinking approach to viewing your tech organization. So as we add more people, as we add more entities to your company, product complexity, the overall organizational complexity increases, and the book really helps you see that there's a secret world operating underneath your challenges.
You're not the typical CTO, right? Like, would you describe most CTOs as entrepreneurial? I would guess that not all of them go and launch their own business, right?
Yes, I have thought about this quite a bit. I would say I'm not your typical CTO, only in the sense that I am a raging extrovert. So I more derive or draw my energy from people and interactions and everything that comes with that. And I would say most people that I see joining Seven CTOs or are in the CTO role join because they are experiencing challenges with leadership in people management, C-suite management, investor management. And so, yes, in that way, I am different. But I will say that entrepreneurial, I think a lot of CTOs are indeed entrepreneurial, but they live vicariously through the CEO that they join or the C-suite that they join. So I'm hoping to see more and more CTOs break out and build their own companies.
Have you always been a raging extrovert? Isn't that like not incompatible with sitting behind a computer desk and writing code?
That is a great question because yes, as a child, I remember spending a lot of time with my buddies and also typing, getting my buddies to type code in from magazines into my Atari 800. So I don't know, Charles. Maybe you can help me. Maybe you can coach me. I don't know why I am so people-oriented, entrepreneurially oriented, but also love coding, love technology. I think if there's maybe a difference is I think if I look at my contemporaries, I feel like they are willing to go to a level that is a lot deeper on stuff that I'm willing to go. So I think, in a way, I think that makes me probably less.
Relatable.
What's that?
Relatable.
Yes. I also view the role of CTO differently. So I think that probably is a little more generous towards people who are less technical. But I think the big difference is, while I absolutely love the joy that I get from creating with code, and have my whole life, I've always been just very interested in what's happening between people's eyes, behind their eyes, like. And I think that might have been something to do with my South African roots. I don't know. I think we're all fearfully, wonderfully different. So
Well, I think the best CTOs do have an aspect of humanity and EQ and some aspect of extroversion in them, because if not, they're designing product for whom, you know? They're not designing products for themselves, most of them. Lucky are the ones that are designing products for CTOs. By the way, that's becoming more and more common currency, but most of them are designing products for humans, and the B2C type, right? Like the consumer type of humans. And I think extroversion depends on one, yeah, like who you are, your genes, but also your objectives, right? So me, for example, I started life quite extroverted. Then I had an introverted period. I became quite good at video games, right? Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, and I was just sitting behind a computer desk. Yes, I was talking to humans sometimes, but is that even like a different type of extroversion, a more modern one, more Gen Z one, in which you're like not speaking to humans, you're chatting with them across the globe, and you don't care who they are, what are their colors, whatever, like just like having online friends, you know? But I think it's also like an essential part to be a nerd about psychology and the human brain and neuroscience if you want to be good at business as well. So nowadays, I would say I'm like 50-50 introverted, extroverted. And this podcast is sort of forcing me to talk to people at scale and get insights. I'm still very curious about humans. I'm still fascinated by the human brain, and I love human brains. I'm not like pessimistic about human nature. You know, I think we're mostly good folks, but yeah, depends on your goals, right? Like if your goal is just to sit behind a screen, make money, and not talk to anyone, and you're happy doing that, then sure. But I think if you impose a degree of hardship on yourself and get out of your comfort zone, I think you'll be even more wealthy. What do you think
yeah,
about that?
I love what you said, especially because I also consider the trend. I think I was a lot more extroverted when I was younger, and I think I actually compare it to my wife. You know, my wife, when we were early in our marriage, she would get upset with me because I didn't want to leave the party. She'd like squeeze my leg. She'd be like, "Hey, I'm ready to go," and I'd want to stay. And now we are 20 years later, and the role has flipped. Like my wife is organizing parties, she's organizing get-togethers, and I am the one who wants to leave early, who gets more exhausted and fatigued. And so I think it's healthy to look at the shift that happens in us. But one comment I want to make is the difference in personality that I see when it comes to sitting behind a computer screen and slacking or messaging someone. Sometimes that messaging can be forceful, um, inconsiderate, it can be blunt. And then when you meet that person in real life, you see that they are shy, considerate, funny. And so I'll say that. And then secondly, I'll say that my daughter, who's 14, is willing to text me things that she would never want to actually discuss with me in person.
Yeah. My wife does that to me as well. It's a
Yes,
different type of convo text via physical or even calls, you know, because we're
yes,
actors in every
yes,
situation. That's how the
yes,
human brain works.
yes. And so when I manage my development teams or I talk to the C-suite members, I used to have an aversion for messaging them. I used to say, "Hey, we have to talk," or "This is a conversation for the phone." And I've actually realized that done well, You can have a very thoughtful conversation. It's actually writing mini letters to each other where you're actually, we call it chat. But when someone says something to me, writes something to me, it forces me to read it, again, put it in the context of the previous message, and it actually helps me do a more thoughtful response. And so when I talk to my development teams or my C-suites or my fellow CTOs, I've actually come to value the access that I have to someone's brain and personality through texting, which extroversion or in-person interaction requires a lot more effort to get to that place,
Oh yeah.
because you have to be inside of the discomfort that comes with that. And I think maybe and I'm just making this up, but I think extroverts are maybe more willing to sit with that discomfort, where introverts might be less willing. Nothing is good, bad. It's just that the extrovert might be more reckless, and the introvert more thoughtful.
Yeah. Yeah, even when I meet people physically, eye contact is something I need to actively practice because else I won't do eye contact. And it's not just because I'm weird or awkward, just that I feel it's like extra energy and I feel it's like extra BS, like I can
Yes,
just tell you
yes.
what I think it is without looking into your eyes. It doesn't mean that I'm less truthful, it just means that I keep it simple. And yeah, I'm quite a physical guy as well, right? Because I'm an athlete as well. So I think like humor helps like physically, right? Like when you meet people physically, like just to break the ice and have fun. Or just go for a run
Yeah,
together,
yeah.
right? Like, because else if we meet for the first time, it's like I don't even know you. Why would I look at you in the eyes? Even shaking hands for me is a bit weird. It's like, why would we exchange microbes? Like if we're brand new to each other, I don't trust your microbes yet. Your hygiene. What do you think about that? Is that
Well,
weird?
shaking hands is back, I think, from the early days when you were proving to someone that you weren't going to shoot them, right? You're like, hey, here's my right hand. Like, I don't have
Let's
a
exchange a
knife.
black plague.
Yes. What comes to mind when you say that to me is we lived in Germany for many years, and
Yeah.
we lived in Germany for 3 years, and I'm a South African, and my first language is Afrikaans, and it's a Germanic language. So it doesn't make it makes it easier to learn German, I think, but it doesn't mean that you understand German from day one. So my progression of getting to know Germans was when I didn't understand them, they were abrupt, black and white, zero defect, people, from the child to the mother to the old lady. When I started getting to know the language and I started seeing there's almost a poetry. German sentences are always 15 times longer than any other language
Oh my
sentences.
God, I would hate that language.
But there is a certain musicality to the language that sounds really aggressive when you
Yeah,
don't know it, and
like
is
Russian.
actually great. And so my point is just, when I got to know the language, I actually realized how funny, hilarious, and how they take themselves less seriously than we think. And I think the same translation happens between, let's say, engineers in a room versus the loud CTO or the loud sales guy. It's the willingness to say, hey, the humor, the human connection, the same human spirit is in all of us.
Yeah.
We just don't have the skill to see it in each
Yeah.
other.
Yeah, most of the time racism is like the lack of education. I think like the best way, and what that's why most broke people are racist, is that they don't have the cash to actually go and visit these countries and immerse themselves in these cultures and learn their intricacies, right? And when you do that, when you travel the full world, you just realize humans are like 95% the same, right? And when you're saying like that, these guys are less good than these other guys, you're making an over assumption that is 95% wrong, and you might be 5% right. So yeah, that's been my experience with different cultures. But yeah, Germany, I think I'm due to visit. Right, I visited them 10 years ago, and I don't have much good to say about Germans, so maybe I should visit them and re-experience the culture, except their car for sure. Like I'm an M performance guy for sure, so their German engineering is amazing.
Indeed.
Yeah, and for example, I'm saying that because the startup scene in Germany, like it could use a bit more of Silicon Valley. I feel. Have you felt that? Yeah, Europe generally is back from a startups standpoint, like with GDPR and all the bureaucratic
Yeah,
bullshit.
it's so interesting. Innovation needs a level of recklessness, and I I noticed. So when I went to Germany, I was there to build. I was building a device driver for an encryption card, and my employer wanted a certain throughput. So I think at those days they wanted like 20 megabits. So I'm dating myself, like the end of the 90s. And they wanted 20 megabits per second throughput, and I could only get it up to about 15 megabits. And in Silicon Valley, I think that would have been shipped. Hey, what's 5 megabits per second? In Germany, in that company, that they killed the project because I inadvertently showed that we were never going to get to 20 megabits, and that was some product spec or some standard that they were chasing. So this was the end of the 90s. So that was 25 years ago. So I think some pretty amazing companies have come out of Europe. Obviously, Spotify, Wunderlist. A lot of the Berlin is a pretty incredible tech scene. So it's interesting. Yeah, I know that I have some strong thoughts about Silicon Valley. So I admire in a way some I'll just say this as a South African. I think in Europe I feel like it's the community first, like the society gets considered maybe to a fault, and in America it's like the individual first, and the individual gets considered to a fault. So I think neither is doing it great, but there is, I think, a different mindset and communal mindset.
And can both coexist? If so, to what degree? Because in my experience, if you're quite individualistic, if you pay taxes, if you employ people, it's good for the whole. If you're more on the, I won't say communist side, right? But I'll certainly say socialist side. In my native Canada, we're way more socialist. Sometimes you may sacrifice yourself. It doesn't even make sense. Some people in your boat won't pull out their weight, you know, and most people are not thriving in this society. They're not in a position to take care of others. Like that's 80 to 90% of population, if not 95%. So it seems to me that the individualism with a sprinkle of socialism, like let's call it 90% capitalism, 10% socialism, is way more scalable than what we're seeing in Europe.
Yes, boy, are you taking us down a rabbit hole. I will just say, as an immigrant, I don't understand. I've been in America for 25 years, and I used to have a chip on my shoulder about it. Now I love the country. I love the United States. I don't understand the political system. I don't understand how it works. One thing I thought was funny was I read an article that said capitalism is great until it needs to be bailed out. So it's funny for me how we live in this world now. Free market economy, I think, is beautiful, except in South Africa I see people just being robbed of opportunities.
Yeah,
And
the
it
blackouts,
hurts
right? With the
me.
electricity is even a mess. Like, it's what's the situation there? Because it's a beautiful country, it's still for a lot of nomads. I was a nomad at some point. A lot considered South Africa. It's very luxurious, right? So, what's the startup scene there? What's the economical situation portrayed?
Well, I think that the entrepreneurial streak in me, I do think has got its roots in the South African culture. So I think from a young age, I think we are aware of the fact that we live in a small economy. From a young age, I think we realize that there are limited opportunities. Um, I, of course, grew up in a very privileged uh, environment because of the color of my skin, and also being a man. I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and so as a child, I couldn't understand what was happening to my buddies at night. They would leave, and I would be so. There's a lot that I couldn't reconcile as a child, um, and I think I carry that inside of me to this day. It's the where I'm from, who my fellow South Africans are. I think last I checked, 40+% unemployment, people my age that have nothing to do, nowhere to go. So I think systems in general struggle to take care of each other. And I think all the man-made constructs, someone always has a better idea of how to look after the society. Oftentimes I think we ultimately all just want to take care of ourselves. And so I think that's what love is to take your time, your resources, your efforts, and bestow that upon someone that is not expecting it, and feels undeserved of your love and your affection. And that's why I think, the reason for starting 7 CTOs for me was a way to harness the collective genius of people in the roles of CTOs who are solving for customer issues, but for the purpose of personal wealth and success. Can I take that brain trust and solve the so-called wicked problems of the planet, and think differently about what's happening in our education systems, in our socioeconomic systems, and what are ways that we can take all this brain power that is being applied to solving a commerce problem and apply it towards solving human issues. So an easy one is education. So we know that education empowers people, and I want to see 7 CTOs play a role in expanding education, focusing education on people that would otherwise never have had opportunities or even thought about things. So,
Oh yeah, I like that. Like that, and yeah, it's interesting, right? Because both of us had privilege, but we both had like a chip on our shoulder. Whether it is because we traveled in different places in the world. I'm from Canada, and I work mostly with U.S. clients, but I'm from Quebec. I think that's way more particular, right? Like Quebec is really small bread, we call it. It's like tallest blade grass gets cut, right? You cannot really be wealthy in Quebec without like people gossiping back about you, right? And there's specific rules. So always had that chip on my shoulder. But yeah, just giving that opportunity back to someone else, like I think in both of our opinions is to help them start a startup, right? Like to be entrepreneurial, to give them a shot in this AI market. Notice we're already on time, so who knows? Let's do a round two. And just one last bit of irony: when I said like blackout in South Africa, I lost electricity immediately when I said that. in Mexico like 2 minutes after, which never happens. But
The
that's like
universe
instant karma.
exists. The
Yeah, yeah,
simulation is real.
bro. The
No, I
simulation.
enjoyed it. I didn't quite know what to expect, but it was I loved how you pulled the marrow out of the bone so quickly. So thanks, Charles. Nice to
My
meet you,
pleasure.
and take care.
Yeah, and what's your call to action? Where should people find out more about you or your book?
I want people to go to 7CTOs, the number 7CTOS.com, and become a high EQ chief technology officer. Also go to
Love that.
ctosentinel.com, CTO Sentinel. That is where you can learn more about our book Liquid that's coming out in August. And I'll see you around.
So that was Etienne and